Hi everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to this YouTube channel on narcissism and narcissistic relationships and what these relationships do to us. It's my hope that what you learn on this channel will help you manage these relationships, heal from them, or ideally not even get into them in the first place. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe and join this wonderful and growing community of people who are actually getting it and hopefully using that information to make their lives better. And also, if you are here to learn more about healing, certainly we talk about it, but if you want to do that deeper dive into healing, please go to the link in the video notes, and if you'd like, you can certainly join our monthly healing program. But today I'm going to talk about something I don't usually talk about on this YouTube channel, which is seaweed. Okay, any of you who've ever been to the ocean knows that seaweed, interesting to look at, kind of gross and sometimes tangly if it gets around your legs. But let's talk about what seaweed has to do with narcissistic relationships. I'm going to be talking about sort of a seaweed strategy that we often see in these relationships, and it might give you a sense of and one of those reasons you got stuck. Now, once upon a time, and the reason I think I call it this is I used to be a more regular scuba diver. I'm not doing it so much now, but back when I learned and I got certified, I learned in the kelp beds here around Southern California, places like Catalina Island and the Channel Islands, places like that. And diving here in Southern California, you have to be careful as a diver in those spaces because they're full of kelp, that you don't get entangled in the kelp and the seaweed, which could sort of wrap around you and get you stuck, which would be scary under the water, and you had to not panic and be skilled enough to disentangle yourself or cut yourself out of the kelp or have your dive buddy help you out, which is why it's important to not dive alone. So that's where this original vision came to me. Now, over the years, I have always looked at seaweed or kelp as a sticky place where we can get stuck. And it sort of comes up on you quickly. You look at the big blue ocean, but then it becomes sort of an oceanic entanglement when the seaweed gets you. And because of what I do for a living, studying narcissistic abuse, one day when I was in the sea and the damn seaweed kept wrapping around me and I had to get it all off when I got out of the water, I sort of chuckled to myself and I thought, oh my God, the seaweed is like a narcissistic relationship. I had originally tried to swim clear of it and avoid it, but it still managed to catch me quickly anyhow and snuck up on me without me even quite noticing it. And then I was all entangled in it. It was hard to get unstuck. And now I was cleaning up a bit of a mess and panicking a little because it sort of ruined my swim and I didn't want to get tangled more. Narcissistic relationship. Now, this seaweed strategy that is often observed in narcissistic relationships is the quick creation of entanglement in a relatively new relationship. It can certainly happen as part of the love bombing phase, but it can also trail into the devaluing phase and beyond. So it might be you're in a narcissistic relationship. You even think you've got it figured out. You know your red flags, you know your vulnerabilities, you are on it. But without knowing it, you can get tangled up. And this can happen in any kind of narcissistic relationship, a friend, partner, workplace. Before you know it, you find yourself maybe having shared some financial things, like maybe you loan the person a little money. You may meet their or they may meet your children really quickly, or you may move in too quickly with them and start meeting friends and family really fast, or you might get in too deep with practical stuff that affects things like places to live or cars or jobs, that stuff of life. You start to really believe you're in a relationship, right? You're falling in love because the practical stuff, that's a relationship, right? And that kind of justifying often makes that seaweed wrap not only more quickly, but tighter. You're seeing the red flags, and every sensible part of you is saying, run away. It's still early enough to do that. It's only been a few months. But those early practical tangles are the issue, and it can be really hard to cut them away. That's why you need a dive buddy to help you out. And in the midst of all those seaweed tangles, that's where people start making justification, even when the ringing in your head and your body is, this doesn't feel right, this isn't right. And those trauma-bonded, cognitively dissonant, driven justifications begin, and you are rationalizing, rationalizing, rationalizing. And before you can say, I think I'm running out of air in my scuba tank, you start believing the false narrative of the relationship, and boom, you are in a gaslighted mess. This kind of seaweed tangly thing is a form of love bombing that we don't always recognize. The ordinary conception of love bombing is intense courtship, excitement, but the rapid entanglements are another form of love bombing and actually result in much stronger rationalization. You are actually being steadfast and not falling for the flowers and the nights out, but insidiously, before you know it, their stuff is in your basement or your garage. They're buying your family dinner. They are using your car because you're working at home. They are sneaking in the love-bombed back door. All of this tangled up practical stuff is actually one of the strongest glues of the narcissistic relationship, a reason that people get stuck. Most of us are savvy enough to not be played and plied by gifts and fun, especially with more and more people out there really understanding love bombing. But the practical stuff is tough, especially when it involves other people. It's the seaweed. The big blue sea may be inviting, but you can't always see that seaweed until it's too late. And for all of you who are watching this who say, girl, I don't swim in the ocean anymore, I get it. I can't begin to tell you how many people have told me, oh, I did see the damn red flags right from the jump. I knew this wasn't right, but we did get into the practical stuff too fast. Someone's lease came up, so we thought it was silly to wait another year of paying 2 rents, or they really thought I had a great business idea and they really wanted to invest in my business, and it felt so good after trying to raise funds for so long to have someone believe in me. I just wanted to make it work. Or I just assumed that they would pay me back. They had a really nice lifestyle and they seemed to have enough money. They told me they were just going through a rough patch. Or my kids met them and they really liked them and it was so good to see my kids having such a good time. Or this person was actually really a big help with something I needed help with. The list of these things goes on and on. So many times the practical stuff doesn't grab our attention the way the traditionally love-bomby stuff does. This practical stuff can often feel more intimate than a candlelight dinner. The shared stuff, the shared purpose, the shared regular life things, that feels like intimacy. And so it can be really hard to disentangle from that stuff. Keep in mind that in the midst of them maybe winning over your children or your family or just it feeling like normal, let's eat dinner at home life, the bad stuff is still happening. The manipulation, the passive-aggressive stuff, the gaslighting, the dismissiveness. It's subtle, this tangled up stuff, that's the seaweed. The abusive stuff, that's the danger. And it can start feeling really hard to get unstuck because of that seaweed. And the narcissistic folks aren't stupid. If you try to put on the brakes and hold off, say, hey, let's hold off on meeting families and friends and kids or loaning your car to them or moving in with each other, they may push back and say, oh, I guess you really aren't that into a committed relationship. I guess you're not really interested in something more serious. And if you hear a statement like that, that can be very confusing. You're seeing red flags, but you do want a committed relationship. It really takes a lot of clarity to say, yeah, I do want a serious relationship and I want to take my time and then be okay with them walking away. It's a great way to weed out the suckers, but the trauma-bonded patterns can make that stance really difficult. And so when they doubt your commitment, a lot of people double down despite the red flags. So be wary of the seaweed. It sneaks up on you and can get you stuck, sometimes dangerously so. Narcissistic folks are clever. If they are getting supply from you, they may want to keep you in it and may try to very quickly pull you into those sticky, seaweedy, practical connections and linkages. In any relationship, make sure you pace the practical stuff. Hold off on overly entangling your life with them. It may seem inconvenient or inexpensive to do stuff like pay 2 rents, but honestly, it could end up saving your mental health. Because if they can't use those practical tangly seaweeds to get you stuck, then they may walk away early in the relationship. And trust me, that's a good thing. So be careful of that seaweed. And next time you get caught in some of it, I want you to chuckle and say, oh, Dr. Ramani, reminder that I don't get quickly tangled into a toxic relationship. Enjoy the beach, and thanks again.